Good evening. Welcome to the June 5th, 2023 Elyria City Council meeting. At this time, I'd like to have a moment of reflective silence, and then we'll follow up by the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Lippian, would you please lead us in the pledge? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If I could ask everyone to turn off their cell phones or put them on mute, out of respect for the meeting tonight, greatly appreciated. Mr. Clerk, I have roll call, please.
Yes, sir. Mr. Callahan.
Here.
Mr. Sira.
Here.
Mr. Oswald.
Here.
Mr. Corbin.
Here.
Mrs. Mitchell.
Here.
Mr. Tollett.
Here.
Mr. Lippian.
Here.
Mrs. Davis.
Here.
Mrs. Simmons. Mr. Schneider.
Here.
Mr. Stewart.
Here.
We have 10 present. We have an excuse for Mrs. Simmons.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
Mr. Sarah, second by Ms. Mitchell. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Public hearings.
We have two, but they're on the same topic, so I'm going to read both of them. I mean, we'll vote on them separately, but I'm going to read both topics so we can have for
Very good.
discussion. You are hereby notified that a public hearing will be held Monday, June 5th, 2023 at 7 p.m. to consider the following. An ordinance amending Section 1131.02 Codified Ordinances of the City of Elyria, Ohio, known as zoning ordinance, to rezone certain real property located in the vicinity of Murray Ridge Road, Infirmary Road, and Garden Street, Elyria, Ohio, from R-MD Residential Medium Density District to S-1 Special Industrial District. And the second one is you are hereby notified the public hearing will be held on Monday, June 5th, 2023 at 7 p.m. to consider the following. An ordinance granting a conditional use permit pursuant to Chapter 1135 of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Elyria, Ohio, to the City of Elyria for a first responder joint training facility at real property in the vicinity of Murray Ridge Road, Infirmary Road, and Garden Street in Elyria, Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Are there any proponents? Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Lee Frank. I work at 18 West Avenue, Elyria Police Department.
All right. Lieutenant Frank, if you want to, I know we're having, you presented to the committee, I want to say it was probably maybe about a month ago or less, in regard to the rezoning here, and you had out an exhibit depicting the overall plan of what's being considered here for this rezoning, and then ultimately the facility in general. So if you had something, go ahead, I'll let you start off, and if we have something for the exhibit.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, I just brought a few photos. If you want, I can put up the general layout of what we discussed last time, and then just some comments on the training facility, the training tempo, things that we kind of foresee going forward with the facility if the zoning's permitted and we move forward with the project.
Yes, I would recommend that.
Mr. President, Council. So this is what we laid out last time when we took this to community development, and then we started this rezoning process. So basically, again, as we moved forward with the joint training facility and we obtained funds from, in conjunction with the FBI, we wanted to develop a training facility for first responders in the area on the location at 851 Garden Street. Basically, that's going to consist of 4 different outside ranges, a simunitions training building, a range support building, and that's the initial phase of this project. That would be it. As we identified locations to do training, as council knows, currently the department does not have a current location for any type of training. The department has to travel to outside agencies and outside the city to perform training. So this facility would allow us to better train our officers, facilitate that training, and be able to support our local first responders in the area. So once we identified this location, we started working with the Federal Bureau of Investigations to obtain funding for this project and have obtained funding for it. So that being said, everybody is fairly familiar with what we've talked about last time with the outdoor ranges and that would have live fire shooting at those locations. The simunitions building, which is the building at the top of the road, the STB building, that is all inside. So there'll be nothing outside. All training is done inside that building. The range support building, which is identified as RS, that will also obtain, that will have a classroom in it, which will facilitate some general classroom training. And range support building means, you know, a workshop, places to store materials, targets, things of that nature. Everything that you see in the blue again is phase 1 of this project. We have talks with the FBI that we'd like, that we're in an MOU with, that this would be a 10-year project overall, multiple phases on each phase. Everything outside the blue is projected training area that has not been funded yet. So I want to be clear on that. This is just a projection of what it could possibly look like if you developed roads and actually put the different buildings in those locations. So that is the general footprint, basically, of what we're talking about with this training facility. The big gray area up top is a driver's training area. So when we located this project, obviously the last time we spoke, we identified several other training locations within the county that our brothers and sisters in law enforcement currently train at, all within residential areas, some of them within residential shopping areas, and close to homes. When we identified this spot, we tried to identify a spot that was furthest away to make the least impact in the community as possible. That's why this location was brought up. So the area in blue is the projected project. Obviously, the big concern and a concern for us was kind of trying to remediate some sound in the area. So as we talk with future plans, these could be some future green spaces that I wanted to show the committee or council this time of what could be developed on the site. So the lower portion there is approximately 35 acres. So on that 35 acres, we could, funding permitted, dirt permitted, based on how much dirt we can obtain, develop some green spaces to also help eliminate some sound and reduce some noise. We're also going to do that by creation of tall berms on the outdoor shooting ranges to help take up some sound. But again, as funding is brought in for the project and how the project develops and working with engineering department and would determine how much materials would be needed and what could be brought in and at what stages. So it's all based on funding. But I just wanted to show council a general footprint of what, if we did develop some green spaces, kind of some ideas that we had to help, one, shield the facility, make it a nice, look nice from the outside, and development of those spaces to help reduce some sound. Let's go to the first one. So again, as funding in the project develops, again, we won't know right offhand how much money will be set aside or how much money we're going to save as the project continues. So as the project continues, by bringing in materials from our other projects that the city has going can save us money and funds. Some of those funds can be put into items like this. So these are sound barrier walls that are made for industrial areas to help reduce sound. So again, we can look into some of these things as the project continues to help mitigate some of that sound. Yep. Again, this is another same company, the same style of wall. It's painted green, obviously, but these are the type of things that we're looking into to help develop that sound reduction. I had been emailed or talked to a few council people about training tempo. I've been called by a few other people about what does that footprint look like. So what is the facility going to do? So for us, one, it eliminates far travel. Two, it helps us maximize the amount of training we can do. As I told council initially, in my opinion, the focal point of this facility is the Simunitions Training House, which is 2 stories, multiple levels. You can change the walls inside, and it's all inside. To me, that is the value of what we're looking to accomplish at this facility, and I see that being used the bulk of the time. Qualifications usually happen twice a year, spring and fall. Most departments operate that way. Some departments shoot once, some departments shoot twice, depending on what their training cycle is. So for us, we're looking to bring people into the area to maximize the use of the training facility, to put officers in real life scenarios, firefighters in real life scenarios where they can go into different environments where it's blacked out, they can find and perform rescues, and we can create real life scenarios that affect training, and it really makes a good officer when you can put them in real life scenarios over and over again and give them that feedback. Most of police training that we conduct is usually Monday through Thursdays. All right, we do some Fridays. Rarely are we there after 5. So most departments are there Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Obviously, in the city, we have noise ordinances that for construction and things like that I believe run from 8 to 8 p.m. But the training tempo will be in 8 weeks at a time, 1 day a week for those times. And then after talking with FBI, you know, until we get the facility up and running and seeing what that tempo is going to look like, again, I think more people are going to be using the inside facilities than even the outside. And like I said, if we have a class or running hosting some type of training, there will be some Fridays, but normally those classes are done by noon, so officers can travel back to their home departments. And again, so back onto sound remediation. Obviously, we understand when people shoot guns, there is some noise, and we do understand that. We're going to try to be good neighbors to the people around us. How do we do that? It's working with engineering and the firm that we hired to help build the facility to create berms at the maximum height that we can get them to help reduce sound and keep it in there. Again, if we can shave costs, find ways to reduce costs in the main project, we can look into designing or bringing in the sound barrier walls and things like that. Obviously, cost prohibitive, whether we can do that and start to bring those in, or engineer the project so they can be installed at later dates as funding is required, as funding comes in. So by creating green spaces, development of berms and things like that in that area, we hope to reduce our footprint in that area and reduce as much sound and impact in the community as possible.
Thank you, Lieutenant Frank. In regards to phase 1, if this rezoning were to take, what is the timeline that we're looking for to try to, the next step would be to, I would think, go out for requests for proposals for engineering and geotech and things like that, but that is the next step. And realistically, what are we looking at? Next year?
Yeah, into next year, if we're lucky with everything going according to plan, if we can do that, and with the rezoning, and once we hire an architect, hire an engineering firm, you know, our hopes would be to start laying things out and getting an initial plan, and if possible, breaking ground this fall, but if not, then it'd be the first part of 2024.
Okay, very good. Any questions from the council members? Ms. Davis?
Through you, Chair. How much did you say this project was going to cost? And how much is the FBI putting toward this project?
The initial layout for the project, we've secured $2.6 million for the project, all funded by the FBI.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Now, whether, Mrs. Davis, whether this initial footprint will cost us that full amount is a little bit unseen at this point until we start laying things out, obviously. First initial studies that were done through the FBI hired a firm to come in and do a study of the project. They were not from this area and not really sure what research they did, but they really inflated the cost of some things. But working with our engineering department, working with through the engineering and building department, the ability to bring in the earth, to make the berms and things like that could offset some costs. But again, with materials and building costs, it's kind of hard to project the overall project totals. But FBI and from what we're looking at, we expect to come under the 2.6 million. So, and then that would be put towards other improvements in the project in phase one.
Right. Anybody else have any questions from council? All right. Thank you, Lieutenant Frank.
Thank you.
Are there any other proponents? Are there any other proponents? Are there any opponents? We'll start with the gentleman here. Please come up, state your name and address for the record. We have a 3-minute time limit, if you can. So just so that everyone gives everyone an opportunity to. Well, I would think that he's explaining what the facility is about over and through there. And what my recommendation would be is that once this public hearing is in its entirety, that Lieutenant Frank and Chief Pelko could meet with individuals in the back of the room to discuss their concerns with reference to that.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Neil Mabrouk, 9645 Murray Ridge Road. The issue that I'm having with this facility is most of the talk was, if there's funding, we'll do the green space. If there's funding, we'll try to get the walls up. If. Most government projects, sorry, not to be a pain, typically run over budget, so I don't see where this money is going to come from. Also, engineering-wise, Murray Ridge is a ridge. Sits higher than the lower lands. Sound travels out and up. Well, if you're above the wall, guess what the sound's going to do? You're going to hear the sound. They're going to have a very difficult time keeping the sound down. Right now, people are out there practice shooting. We've called the police, we've called the sheriff's department. Nobody seems to know that somebody's practice shooting, but there's people practice shooting back there right now, checking out things probably, I'm not sure. I've been wanting to take my drone over, but every time I'm about to take my drone over there, it's just about wrapping up and I'm not finding anything. We're concerned about property value. We're concerned about safety, the bike trail, the metro parks, people walking their dogs. There's a lot of stuff going on that really should be looked into. I mean, has any kind of a mental health assessment been done through the county health department? Repeated shooting when you live in such close proximity, and I'm about 1,000 feet from the facility, and there are people here that are even closer to that. Has any of this been taken into account? Murray Ridge School, school for developmentally disabled. You have children sometimes that have auditory issues, and you're going to be hearing gun noises. They keep on saying, we're going to put the barriers, we're going to put this, if we have the funding, if it comes under budget, if this, if that. I'm not hearing that it's definitive that they're going to take care of the noise of the people that live right there. The property values are going to go down. We're going to be having our dogs going nuts. Some people ride horses within the area, and then you have the people that are in the metro parks trying to have a peaceful walk with their dog, hearing this gunfire. It's not acceptable. It just is not acceptable. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you for coming up. There was quite a few hands over and through here. I guess I'll just go with Mr. Cook. Or go ahead, miss. You're up. Go for it. That's okay. I'll read them in order as they come up and through.
Well, Neil just did a very good job of, I'm Sherry Crawford, 9033 Murray Ridge Road. Neil said it all just now. I did not see up there, I saw the green space. I did not see it very complete. My property borders a lot of this facility, and there was no green sound barriers up there. I don't know if that was just part of the phases, but when they're talking 10 years, could my spot that has the green space be year 9? I mean, that's not going to be acceptable either. I have horses. My property is right beside this facility. It butts up to it. So my only concern is, well, 2 concerns, the value of the property and the noise. I have heard the testing phases that they've been doing, and I was wondering, was there any kind of results that we could view on the decibel points of that? Because it's very loud where I live. There's no real rhyme as to when the training's been going on or the samples, but when it's going on, I can hear it very loud. So like I said, my concern is the noise, and then what's it going to do to our property value? Thank you.
Thank you for coming up. The clerk's office did give me a list, so I'm just going to go in the order that I have here. Mr. Keith Cook, will you please come up, state your name and address for the record?
My name is Keith Cook, AKA KC. I reside at 455 11th Street in this fair city. I consider myself most fortunate that it is before you, honorable council persons, that this day I'm offered the opportunity to persuade you to vote against the 2 ordinances for a proposed regional shooting facility on Garden Street. This legislation, not for 1 range, not for 4 ranges, but as Police Lieutenant Lee Frank said, a small city or village, if passed, will completely destroy your mission to make our great city of Elyria a better place in which to live, learn, work, and play. Depending on the type of gun and the caliber, gunfire can be heard 1 to 2 miles away. I have a video where the state police in Illinois did a test on this. If you'd like it, she has my email. Email me, I'll get it to you. This will personally affect hundreds of families, not only on the south side, but families in Eastern Heights, West Park, and elsewhere. This will affect Wesleyan Village with over 200 residents, UH Medical Center, Hamilton School, and Murray Ridge School. Residents will not be able to enjoy any peace or solitude, whether in their backyards or their homes. For example, from the proposed range to West Avenue and 8th, 0.7 miles, West Avenue and 4th, 0.8 miles, East River and Stanford, 1.3 miles, University and Park, 1.4 miles. And I could go on. UH Medical, 1.5 miles. Murray Ridge and Albrecht, 1 mile. West Ridge and Fowle, 1.9 miles. The Firelands Boy Scout range allows only the smallest caliber rifles to be fired. It sits on over 400 acres of land and has been in operation since the 1930s. And still, residents complain about that little range. The proposed range of this magnitude must not be allowed in our city. I'm not against the police. I think that'd be a great facility. Do all you want there, but do not have outdoor rifle ranges. Make them all indoor. With a regional facility, we can only assume that multiple ranges will be in operation on the weekends as well. Unlike this gentleman here said, once you get this started without mandates, they can do anything they want. This is truly madness. Please think of the well-being of your constituents and vote against these 2 ordinances. If you are hoodwinked into thinking that this is a good idea for our city, then please put limitations on its operations. Make it an indoor range. Only allow it to be in operation from 9 a.m. to 5 a.m. and no weekends allowed. Mandate superior barriers that will suppress the noise and allow only suppressed firearms to be used. Do not allow this project, if the funds are not available at the very beginning, to mandate these things. I'm pro-gun, I'm pro-Second Amendment, I'm an avid shooter, and I would love nothing more than to have an accessible range nearby. But to put this range in a populated area is inviting nothing but frustration and problems. Please vote against these two ordinances. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. Mr. Daniel Langford. Welcome. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name's Daniel Langford, 9373 Murray Ridge Road. My concerns are with the noise level. I live just to the north of the proposed small town, and I'm concerned with the noise level and the property value. That's pretty much saying it all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Langford. Appreciate you coming up. Ms. Brenda Warren. Please state your name and address for the record.
I'm Brenda Warren. My address is 436 10th Street, Elyria. I stand before you in humility, also voicing or echoing some of the sentiments that have already been shared. My biggest concern is for the quality of life for our constituents and for the residents of these proposed areas, also the property value. And I'm very much concerned that we do our due diligence to make certain that there is the noise abatement and all those things that are so very necessary for a facility like this to even be considered for our community. I would suggest as well that there be community involvement in this planning process, because we fool ourselves if we think that this is not going to impact our entire community. So I echo what's been said, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Warren. Mr. Patrick Helton. Please state your name and address for the record.
Patrick Helton, 9260 Murray Ridge Road. I live on the corner of Murray Ridge and the Mercury, one of the closest houses. And as a veteran and someone who's been to gun ranges, no matter the barrier you put around is going to solve those noise issues. This is, if FBO wants to pay for this stuff, send it out to a farther area where you got more acreage. There's too many houses around here. There's always the chance of overshooting the range, berms. It could hit houses depending on what, caliber rifles you shoot, if they're out there with rifles. Another thing is the burn building. Missouri Township has a burn building. That's just, they're empty. Why can't they just use that as, as part of the future thing? Why have another one? And you got that small town thing they have proposed. You're going to have screeching cop car sirens going off. And that's another noise complaint that's going to be there. People flying in, those arms and squealing and doing their little mock setups. And this is something that needs to be pushed farther out. There's gun ranges around here they can do partnerships with if they want to, a gun range. That's enough. Thank you.
Thank you for coming up. Miss Dolores, is it Kibble? Welcome. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Dolores Kibble. I live at 417 10th Street. I would like to ask, why was this area chosen? Can someone answer that for me, please? All the land, there's homes aren't there, kids aren't there. Why this area? Why was it chosen?
Lieutenant Frank, if you want to, at this particular time, if you want to just address that, again, I think Ms. Kibble will address his comments over through, but if you, Lieutenant Frankie, you can use, okay, that's fine. That's loud enough.
All right, so basically the reason why we found this location is one, it's repurposed used for certain things. Basically, furthest place that we could find within our city confines, the furthest location away from any residential areas. So for that, right, using repurposing land that we're going to use and trying to minimize impact as far as having it in a kind of a wooded area and as far away from people as we can.
Okay, but you do know there are kids still there in those apartments. There are people with developmental disabilities on Infirmary Road. What about their stress? What do you intend to do about the stress this may cause them?
Again, it's by minimizing as much sound as we can and building the facility walls as we can build them.
You and I both know the sound is going to be there. Maybe not as loud, but it's going to be there. Have you talked to these people, the people that surround there, the people with disabilities? Have you talked to them? Why not? Well, it needs to be done. If it's coming into their area, they have the right to know.
Thank you, Ms. Kibble. Is it pronounced Jonah or Johnson? Jonah Johnson. Welcome. Please come up and state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jonna Johnson. I live on 8th Street. Everything these guys already asked is what I wanted to ask, but thank you. And thank you guys for asking. And I do want to know why this area. Why you guys picked that area. I wanted to know the same.
Okay.
I mean, like she said, you could pick any area.
Very good. Well, I think,
The city owns the property and
Okay, what about the wildlife, the deers and all that? I mean, because we already get them all over. What you gonna do with that? Because when I worked for the Ohio Turnpike, when they blast land over there to build the new hotels and the malls, deers had nowhere to go but across the turnpike and get killed. What you gonna do about that now? They have there's deers over there. Yes, there are deers over there because they travel across over where I'm at also. And all over the place. What you gonna do about all them? You just don't care?
oh, okay.
But with the gunshots in the
Okay.
building, the deers is gonna fly out.
Okay.
Never thought about that?
Ms. Johnson and Ms., all right.
Okay.
Lieutenant Frank and Ms. Johnson, I think, this has been, we understand the concern here, that the residents have brought up here over and through.
The residents too, but I'm just talking about the deers also. I mean, because you see a lot of them being killed and a lot of them getting chased off of their property also.
I understand there's a lot of things that are being talked about and need to be considered and
But
have
like I
further.
said, that these people already had answered what I wanted to,
Well, this is not the forum to do it here. I asked at the end when everybody was speaking that we would go out into the back lobby, discuss it. This is a public meeting that was held roughly about a month ago to discuss what's being brought here. So now we're having a public hearing to voice your concerns. So what I would recommend, after we've completed everyone speaking, is to have Lieutenant Frank and Chief Pelko and those residents here who came up and spoke and who have more concerns about it, to have more discussions about it and hope and gather more information before.
okay, no, I understand that, and and I appreciate you giving me the chance, the opportunity to talk, but I just now find out about this last week. Not everybody gets the Chronicle, so no one knows what's going on. I just found out about this last week, just to let you know.
Right, well, that's a
Thank you for giving me the
Sure.
opportunity.
Well,
Thank
we
you.
welcome you to come up. Thank you. So with that being said, I know there's been a lot of discussion in regards to what's being proposed here for this rezoning. Maybe there's some additional information that we can gather to answer some of the questions that were here and get clarity on those. So at this particular time, I'll give it a second reading. But Mr. Corbin, you had a question you wanted to, or weigh in on?
Through you, Mr. President. I came from Columbia Station. I was out there for 30 years, and they have shooting out there. And I would go to the trustees' meetings religiously, and the complaints from the residents, as we have heard tonight. I have told Chief Pelko, I have told the fire chief, I will support whatever you want because I know both of these gentlemen are men of integrity and they want what is best for the city of Elyria. I cannot support either of these measures because of the number of residents we have had come tonight. And just like my ward is Chestnut Commons, the issue there is the traffic. The issue here is the noise abatement. If I had a noise abatement issue that was going to resolve this, I would be all in favor. Police chief, fire chief, I will support you entirely, but on this specific issue, because of the noise and the residents that are currently there, I cannot support this. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Corbin. Mayor Whitfield.
Thank you, Council President. Through you to council and to the residents. First off, thank you all for sharing your concerns with us. I think you handled yourself very professional, and I appreciate the feedback. A couple things that I'll share that I'd like for us to consider. One is I want to make sure it's clear that this is not a public shooting range. This is not for the general public to come in and use as a shooting range. Secondly, this is a training facility for our Elyria Police Department and the FBI. I think it's important to note that this is a training facility. These frequently asked questions that came up around why the land was chosen and these issues around the sound, I think these are questions that we should definitely give you some solid answers to. So we'll work on making sure that communication gets there. But one thing I think that we should consider tonight, and this will go before you all, City Council, is a commitment to these sound barriers. That if we do not get the funding necessary, that we would make that commitment, that we would financially support to ensure that there is sound barriers so that there can be some assurance to the general public that no matter what, we're not going to do this without the sound barriers. So that would be my comment. Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Mayor Whitfield. Mr. Gillette.
Through you, Mr. President, I agree with Mayor Whitfield 100% that we would have to, as a council, make a commitment to these sound barriers. And two things, being a tournament shooter since 1985, I've shot at facilities all over the country, and those that do it right, and especially what they're talking about doing here, you can drastically limit the sound. This is not a public shooting facility like Amherst Sportsman's Club or Beaver Creek Hunt Club or Hillendale and Medina or even the Grand American that's now held in Missouri. This is not that. This is a training facility with detailed engineered sound barriers. So I would be willing to make that public commitment to the sound barrier project, that I would move forward with voting on the zoning, but under the condition that we guarantee the public that these sound barriers are done correctly. Thank you.
Mr. Oswald.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will go second if Ms. Jerry wanted to speak first. I know you had your hand up.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. President, I just wanted to point out for a bit of clarification for council that although this is a very substantive first step of rezoning, and then should council decide to rezone, then to consider granting a conditional use permit for this particular purpose, this is the very, very beginning of what's going to be a long road. This matter would need to still go to Planning Commission. All these issues as far as sound barriers and things would need to be considered. The architectural renderings will all go to Planning Commission as well. And at any step, if those don't pass muster, this plan, I'm not dooming it, I'm just saying, these things could fall apart. So I'm certainly not advising council to make a decision one way or the other. I'm just want to reassure each of you that while, yes, you should be mindful of things such as sound barriers and things like that, if the plans do not include all those things at the planning commission level, then, I mean, there's a lot of safeguards still to come as well. However, if council feels strongly that this should not be rezoned and this should not move forward, then that's obviously the way that you should vote.
Mr. Lippian?
Thank you, through you, Mr. President. I like a lot of the conversation we've had around this subject. A lot of the residents, especially Casey, I can't remember your last name, but I know you said Casey for short, so I found a lot of compelling speeches. I think it's important that we assess the opportunity cost here. What we do if we set up this training facility and what it brings to the city in terms of making our police officers more safe, engaging with partners, drawing law enforcement individuals to the city that would spur interest in the city of Elyria for potential recruits, or just make Elyria a bit of a destination point for law enforcement training, as well as certain economic considerations. Meanwhile, on the other hand, the residents that I hear are advancing negative rights, which is the right against sounds that would be disruptive to their daily activities or their tranquility of life, which also have to be taken into account. There's also the developmentally disabled. I heard some people mention that. I think that should be explored as well and questioned to Murray Ridge to see what their thoughts are on that. But we have to weigh these things against one another with a cost benefit. What benefit are we getting for the cost that will be incurred? And as we're weighing those two things, I think it's important for us to think too about perhaps some predictability to when the facility is used so that the residents are never taken off guard if it's determined that the sound is heard. I know Casey talked about only making it an indoor shooting range, and that's an interesting thought too. So when I hear about the village being mentioned, I'm reminding I'm a veteran as well, and I'm reminding my training in villages and mock terrorist villages and things like that, and I don't recall using live fire rounds in those sorts of scenarios, and I don't know if that's the police officers I'm seeing shaking no. Yeah, so the village would not be used for live rounds or for, for guns that are emitting a decibel level sound. So but that's basically the way those trainings are set up. They'll clear the area, they'll practice going in and out of buildings and things like that, but they wouldn't be pulling the trigger and making loud noises in the village. And I'm seeing Lieutenant Frank shake his head no, he's saying correct, that's good. So I think we need to continue to have these conversations because we need to understand what the village will be used for and what it won't be, as we're calling it the village. And we also need to understand the cost-benefit analysis. I think if we can find developmental disability opinions from Murray Ridge, and if we can get some predictability to when the facility is used, or if it's possible, and it might not be, to give the residents some notice on when it would be used, if it's going to be at variable hours, this might be stuff that's worth exploring. That's all the comments I had.
Thank you, Mr. Lippian. Mr. Oswald?
Through you, Mr. President. I agree. We got to watch the safety of the sound, people's properties, their values. And I don't want us to miss the point that the reason that we're going to have this, if we do have this, is we're training our police officers to do the job that they really need to do, a good job for our city of Elyria. When the police department comes and they say, you know what, we really feel a necessity to have body cameras so we can do a good job, or we need more police cars so we can check to make sure our city's being safe. When the fire department comes and says, we really need this fire truck, because if we don't, someone's going to be put in harm's way because we can't put a fire in. So we say, I think it's a good idea. And sometimes you look at that cost and what's the cost? One life, and when these guys get this really good training, which this facility could be, okay, now when these police are going out and they've had this training in these areas that they set up, they have a better idea what they could possibly get into, and that could save lives, both for the police and for the person that they're going after, so that we don't have to shoot somebody. The big thing right now is crime and guns in hands. And if they could figure out what they're thinking with all this training, this is a good thing. So let's not forget the reason we're doing this is for good training. And they're asking us to follow what they want. And I think that we should be looking at the safety, the sound, the property values. I think we could come to an agreement where we could do something. But let's not forget, it's for good training, and we need that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Oswald. Again, you know, this was a second reading tonight. I believe that a lot of information was shared, a lot of information that still needs to be looked at and researched and discussed, but we're not going to know that until we're setting the process forward. I am in favor of this, where the facility is at. I think it's, as Mr. Oswald explained, this is for the protection of our residents, our protection of our law enforcement, and ultimately our protection for our fire department. And it's going to be a process. This is a long way to go, but this is the first step in doing that.
Through you, Mr. President, I'm sorry, I believe if you would please call for any final opponents. I believe we have one more.
Did I only do two? Did I only do 2 times or 3 times?
Once.
Okay, once time. Or is there any other, forgive me a point of order with that, Law Director Derry, is there any other opponents?
It's Matt Schwab, 503 West Avenue. Now, I am in favor of well-trained police officers, but what I'm not in favor of is the noise disturbance. So a lot of you guys know that I've been battling with a public entity, literally right next to my house, with a huge noise issue for 5 years. It's been an uphill battle. So I sympathize with these people, and I'm going to be downwind of this because the winds primarily come out of the west, and it's going to bother us like crazy in the south side. So what I'd like you guys to think about is a screening and buffering ordinance. I think a couple of these residents' property will abut this property, and in that ordinance it states that screening and buffering shall be provided for any conditionally permitted or any permitted or conditionally permitted non-residential district that abuts a residential district, and that the sound needs to be 65 decibels or less at that property line. So you really need to ensure that, even though these people live in the township, it's still a residential district right next to that. And, sorry, I didn't have a lot of time to prepare this. The lieutenant said you guys will be practicing Monday through Thursday during regular business, I'll say regular business hours. But there's nothing in the ordinance, in the city ordinances that stop that. Gunfire by police for line of duty or training is exempt from the noise ordinance. I would recommend that the council looks at ordinance 549.13, and it says the firing of firearms by law enforcement officers in the performance of their duties or during training. Now, after the training, I would put during and put the hours down. Limit the hours 10 to 2 or something, or 3-4 days a week or something. And this really needs to be an indoor facility. Really needs to be an indoor facility. You have the money. You have money to build the mounds up. You have money to build a building. Do 1 range instead of 2 ranges. Do it indoors, and buffer it from everybody. We don't want to listen to it, but we do want well-trained police officers. And then also looking at your future, you have the driving area. You're probably going to be sirens on that. There's going to be skidding. There's going to be hard accelerations. That sound will travel as well. You really need to think about this stuff.
Thank you, Mr. Schwab.
Thank you.
Are there any other proponents?
Opponents.
Opponents, excuse me. Are there any
And hire
other
an acoustic engineer for this project.
Are there any other opponents?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Purvey Smallwood. I live at 614 Georgetown Avenue. I'm a route manager for the City of Elyria Sanitation Department. I've been here 26 years. We want to come as a group and say thank you for giving us the 3 trucks that help us do our job and could do it for the future. I want to thank Mayor Frank and all the council people for stepping up for us. But we're hoping this is for the future. so you can keep our sanitation going. Because we provide a big service for the city of Elyria. We do things that outside companies do not do. We take bulk every single day. We do a lot of things that they do not do. So we're counting on you guys to keep us moving forward in the future. We get a lot of people that talk negative about sanitation department and want to get rid of sanitation department. But I think a lot of those people that does that doesn't really understand what we out here doing. So we just want everybody to know that we thank you for putting us on the spot and giving us the right equipment to do what we need to do. And one of the persons that is not here today that spoke negative of us is Mary Saworka. I don't want to be the type of person that talk behind somebody's back. I wish she was here. But we want to point out some things. She made a comment that we pay $100 a ton to dump at the garbage facilities. We pay $43 and some change. It's not $100. So she needs to get her facts correct. We got to look at how we do things in the city. Mary is about power. She's not about the city of Elyria. She's about power. If she got the power to do something, that's just where she's going to do it, because she want to be the person that has power. Like I said, I wish she was here so we can address her directly, but she's not. I believe she's in Spain or Italy or somewhere. But what I want to also say is, let's look at the future of Mary, or her past. She came into the city of Elyria.
Mr. Smallwood, I appreciate you coming up here. So, in regards to what you're speaking to, this should have been in relationship to the training facility that's being converted to rezoning. I know you wanted to come up and speak to us acquiring the sanitation trucks, and we appreciate the hard work that the sanitation department is doing over and through there. So you kind of got ahead of where we were at with things, but we welcome you to come up and speak to that. But I don't think this would be the platform for you to kind of talk about Mr. Work in regards to the sanitation. We value you and the employees at the sanitation department and what you do. We look forward to working with you in regards to that. But we were doing a public hearing with.
Are you looking to keep us into the future?
I think we've invested, I believe it was 8 trucks within the last couple of years. I would think we've made an investment to say that we're moving forward with the sanitation department.
Yeah, because we want to continue to provide the service that we have been for the citizens of Elyria. So we're definitely looking to go into the future, because we got a group of guys here that's here now that's looking to work for years to come for the city of Elyria. So we're just hoping that it's not just something to get us the trucks and then next thing you know, you sell us out to somebody. We just want to make sure that we're going to be in here for the long haul.
Very good. We appreciate you coming up and speaking to that. Yes. Hearing has been held.
An ordinance amending section 1131.02 codified ordinances of the city of Elyria, Ohio, known as the zoning ordinance, to rezone certain real property located in the vicinity of Murray Ridge Road, Infirmary Road, and Garden Street, Elyria, Ohio, from R-MD Residential Medium Density District to S-1 Special Industrial District.
Mr. Callahan. I guess my point at this point, let's get a motion to get it on the floor to have more further discussion.
Okay, motion to put it on the floor is, I make a motion to approve ordinance on its second reading.
Second by Ms. Mitchell. I would be in favor of having additional time rather to gather this information over and through what was presented to us.
First reading.
Through you, Mr. President, this is a first reading.
Yeah.
This is the first reading?
Yes.
Oh. Okay. I thought this was the second reading. Okay. So I guess we're just going to go ahead and give it a first reading then. I declare this ordinance has had its first reading.
An ordinance granting a conditional use permit pursuant to Chapter 1135 of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Elyria, Ohio, to the City of Elyria for a first responder joint training facility at real property in the vicinity of Murray Ridge Road, Infirmary Road, and Garden Street, Elyria, Ohio.
I declare this ordinance has had its first reading.
That's all the public hearings.
Can I get approval of the minutes?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Sarah.
Second.
Second by Mr. Snyder. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. I'm going to change up the agenda here. We have the members of the Elyria Community Partnership, Ms. Executive Director, Ms. Monet Roberts. She's going to give us an update on where the Elyria Community Partnership is at to date, and she's brought a guest with her. Welcome. Please state your name and address for the record.
I'm a little short here. Monet Roberts, 433 Poplar Street, Elyria, Ohio. Thank you all for having us today. We really appreciate you all being mindful of the time and being able to move us up. I wanted to just give some updates for you all, just considering the immense support that the City of Elyria has given us as an organization. Just so you guys are aware of everything that we're doing in this season. So just first and foremost, we do have some staffing changes here. Dominic Price started with us May 1st. He's our new events and engagement coordinator. He's really hit the ground running, planning our movie night and third Thursdays that are coming up. June 15th is the first one. So I really hope to see all of you, and I wanted to give him an opportunity to speak and just to say hello and introduce himself. So if you guys would just give us a quick moment so I can introduce him.
We can do that. Mr. Price, please state your name and address for the record. Welcome.
Dominic Price, 108 Regency Court, and thank you guys for having us here to give a few updates with what ECP is doing on with the community. As Monet stated, I started May 1st, and from there, it's just been a joyous opportunity to fuel and, captivate the community on upcoming events that are taking place, as she stated, with the movie night, as well as our third Thursdays coming up, and a new focus is the Farmers Market Elyria. So with that being said, I was given an opportunity and just having a background of putting on community events. I was also, bring that back. I recently became a resident during the pandemic. So this month actually made 3 years of being a resident of Elyria, and it was just an honor to be a part of a community that's thriving and growing at this time. And yeah, I thank you guys.
Very good. Well, I had the privilege of meeting Mr. Price at our last Elyria Community Partnership meeting. We look forward to working with him. He's very engaged and looking forward to kind of making great change here in the downtown area and for our city. I believe we all received a handout for what the schedule of events is supposed to be happening over and through there. And I believe there's a website that on our website, all this information is available as well, Ms. Roberts.
Yes.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions? Mr. Sarah?
To you, Mr. President, just one quick one on the farmer's market. Do we have a start date?
June 24th.
June 24th?
Yes.
And that'll run through the first week of September?
Yes, September 9th. June
September
24th to September 9th, every Saturday from 9 to 1.
At the square?
At the square.
Thank you.
Everything's at the square.
Everything's at the square. Does anybody else have any questions in regards to the Elyria Community Partnerships and their update? Well, very good. We appreciate you coming up. Nice to meet you and welcome.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I spoke with the mayor earlier. He was obviously, I think he's outside and addressing the residents over and through there, so I don't believe he said at that time he didn't have any comments. Safety Service Director Lundy?
I guess I'll be very, very brief. Just wanted to make everybody aware on the garage sales, which under ordinance we refer to as rummage sales. We do issue those permits out of the Safety Service Director's office. Just want to make everybody aware that they're to be for no more than 4 consecutive days. We've had some calls about some rummage sales running for long periods of time. And also, The permits that are issued, will issue 2 of those per year for someone to have a garage sale. Also wanted to make everybody aware as you're preparing, and I'm sure it'll be here before we know it, because we know after Memorial Day, the summer just flies by. The 4th of July, on that day, based upon the decision made by council here regarding fireworks, on the 4th of July, they'll be permissible from 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. on that day. That completes my report.
Ms. Mitchell?
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you, Mr. Lundy, when will the fireworks be for the city at West Park? I believe it's June 30th, but I just want to confirm that.
I'm reading the ordinance here. It says the 4th day of July from 8 p.m. to 11 p.m.
I think I think June 30th. That's the fireworks at West Park. That's what I was asking.
City's fireworks.
Oh,
City
yeah,
fireworks.
The city fireworks.
Yes,
I'm
sir.
sorry.
Yes. I believe it's June 3rd at
Okay.
West Park. June 30th. Sorry.
We'll get it together here.
We'll get it right.
Has anybody questions for Mr. Lundy?
Nobody knows.
All right, very good. Finance Director Plesky?
Thank you, Mr. President. I have 2 items tonight. The first being Judge White from our Elyria Municipal Court would like to send 2 of his employees to the National Association of Drug Court Professionals Conference in Houston, Texas. So Houston is more than 500 miles, so according to Elyria Ordinance 165.14A4, that requires council approval to allow the employees to travel over 500 miles.
Okay, can I get a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Sarah, second by Ms. Mitchell. Is there any further discussion?
Question?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Thank you, Mr. President. The second is that I would like to request that you refer to the Finance Committee of Council the matter of the 2024 tax budget. That will have to go to the next Finance Committee meeting and then passed by council in the July meeting, as it is due to the Lorraine County Budget Commission in mid-July, as it is every year. So,
Okay,
2024 tax budget.
Very good. Clerk's office can make note of that. That'd be greatly appreciated. Anything else? Okay, very good. Law Director Deary.
Good evening, everyone. As many people have personally discovered or have read about in the paper, the traffic unit has been very busy. My prosecutor's division has received that as they are the next step in that chain. I am looking to see if, frankly, people learn their lesson and lighten their lead feet on their gas pedals. But I would anticipate, if that does not happen, that we may be getting some requests from Elyria Municipal Court for some assistance. I know that they had 60 arraignments the other morning that were nothing but traffics. So that is, it's a bad thing as far as people not following the speeding limits on our streets, but it is showing that our police are out there doing their jobs. So, but I just wanted to let you know, they're a bit slammed over at Elyria Municipal Court. But other than that, I have no report, and I will keep everyone updated if we need some extra bodies.
Gotcha. Any questions for Law Director Deary? Mr. Lippian?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. President. I'm curious, do we know the number of tickets that were issued for the first month of the traffic unit's existence?
Through you, Mr. President, I don't myself know. I believe that is something, 250?
Over 250.
Over 250. 4. Oh, I'm seeing 4. They're a bit staggered as far as the arraignment dates in court, so my office gets them a little bit here and there, and that, of course, doesn't take into account the waivers for people who are able to waive their tickets. Many of the tickets that are coming through or to Elyria Municipal Court are those that are unable to be waived. And those are, I would say, especially concerning due to the fact that those are people who speed in school zones or are excessive speeds. The police department's seeing quite a few of those, so, which is not surprising to those of you who have been reporting those for quite a long time, but it's still pretty alarming when you see those stats in terms of stacks of tickets electronically, so not literal stacks.
Do you have a follow-up, Mr.?
I just wanted to thank Director Deary and her department, as well as the police department for all the work, and our municipal court for all the extra work they're doing to process this. So thanks, ma'am, I'm sure it's not easy.
Well, through you, Mr. President, it is my people, and they are being very good sports.
Mr. Oswald? Through you, Mr. President, I want everybody to know that the reason we're doing this is not to fill our general fund, but it is to keep the city safe. And we're having too many issues right now with accidents and things, and this is a good thing. So hopefully they keep up the good work and just slow down. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Oswald. I see Chief Palco is out in the lobby. They're busy. We'll run through there. So we'll go to the Elyria Fire Department. Chief Pernesti. All right. Assistant Safety Service Director, Ms. Calvert.
Good evening, through you, Mr. President. I just have a couple of quick updates for council. First, I wanted to let you know that our Elyria Comprehensive Plan is very much underway. We closed out the survey portion of information gathering, so we received over 400 survey responses, which is pretty good for what we were expecting. Survey rates are usually less than what anyone would like, but that was pretty typical with what we were expecting. The steering committee has met twice, and you can see the results, what was discussed, and notes from those meetings and the presentations on the ourelyria.com webpage. And also the consultants, MS consultants, will be at each of the Third Thursday events coming up throughout the summer so that we can get more resident feedback and input into the survey data that's been collected and get thoughts and ideas about the future for the city. And then lastly, regarding the comprehensive plan, over the summer, we're going to be doing a series of 4 walking tours. We are going to hit the north, the south, the east, and the west sides of the city for about a mile walk. The dates are yet to be determined, but as soon as we have those, we will make those available, and the public is welcome to join. So we're really looking forward to that as another way to get input there. The second update I wanted to share is with the Spruce Up Elyria program. As we've discussed before, it's been wildly popular. We've received 137 apps so far, so 137 applications, 75 of which have been approved for about $320,285 worth of improvements. We have 37 applications pending final approval and 25 still in the queue for review yet. So, and about $150 has been encumbered so far. So it's a very robust program. Our community development department has been outstanding. Each person in that department has played a significant role in that was a big program that they have spent a lot of time managing. So I just want to thank them and give that entire department a shout out for the work that they're doing.
All right, very good. Any questions for Ms. Calvert? Mr. Oswald?
Just a comment. I did stop into the department, and everybody has been working their butt off and working late, and they've been showing me the piles on piles, but all organized. And so this has been a great thing. And yes, they have been doing so good of a job. So maybe if this continues, maybe we're going to have to get some more help over there too. So, thank you.
Very good. Any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Calvert. Assistant Safety Service Director, Mr. Williams. All right. Oh, Mr. Tolet?
Through you, Mr. Williams, at the last meeting, Safety Service Director Williams. The last meeting, I asked you a question about all the electronic stop signs that had gone to just one part of town, and the rest of the city's requests had been neglected. Could you speak to that?
Yes, somewhat through you, Mr. President. So I wouldn't say that they were neglected. The mayor had extended opportunity for council members to come in and discuss issues, challenges, things they wanted in their ward. And those signs were a direct response to a council person coming in and having extensive conversations with the mayor, with the police department. And out of that, there was budgeted into the street budget money for signs. I'm going to finish, please. The opportunity still exists, and we would encourage anyone who wants to have that discussion, whether that's purchasing additional signs, whether that's reallocating signs. We should be doing that, and by all means, we would welcome coming in and saying, hey, this is what we're doing, this is what we would like to see, and we should continue to engage in placing more signs in more wards. We have speeding issues in various places. That was a response to, and that's how that came about.
Mr. Tolet and Ms. Mitchell.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. So they that process totally bypassed Finance Committee, Community Development, and Utilities. So it was the mayor that made the decision specifically to put them all in that ward?
That was an administrative decision, and there was nothing that was out of order, that was out of the administrative responsibility or authority in that regard.
Well, I'll let Ms. Mitchell speak then. I'll speak to that.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you, if there was an invitation from the mayor for us to come in and speak with him one-on-one about what our wards needed, I missed that.
So it was throughout the entire ARPA process, numerous times.
Okay.
It has been extended to council folks. What are your requests? What would you like to see? That was something that was stated numerous times. We could go into the minutes. We could go into the, that was an invitation that had been extended on numerous occasions.
Okay. Again, I must have missed that. Excuse me, Mr. President, through you. The process has always been that when we need street signs or anything, we go through engineering, and engineering determines that need. That one ward got 25 signs, and I have been waiting. I asked for 3 signs, well, 6 in 3 locations, and I have not gotten them yet. How is that fair?
So I simply answered the question that Mr. Tolet expressed on the process of how that transpired.
And Mr. Williams, excuse me, Mr. Chair, through you, and I am asking a question, how is that fair? I asked through engineering, following the process that's been in place forever, and I'm told I can't get a sign, but one ward got 20 or 25 signs. What about the rest of us? Our residents count too. They pay taxes.
And again, I would say the same thing that I just said. Please schedule. We can discuss that with any and everyone. And again, I'm simply stating the process that transpired.
Well, the process, again, and that's what I was going to allude to with what Ms. Mitchell had said, is that when we had the speed limit signs at critical areas, that was discussed with the engineering department at that time, and there's a process, and it seems like that process was not gone through. And then where did this money come from? Did you use ARPA dollars to pay for these signs?
So I can't speak to, I wasn't part of I'm simply explaining what my research showed in terms of how that decision came about. I don't,
Well, you would have signed that,
No.
that authorization to go ahead and order the signs. You did sign that, if I'm not mistaken.
so what I sign are purchase orders. The purchase order doesn't indicate necessarily what fund specifically it would have come from. On the purchase orders that I sign, whether it's the 55 that I signed today, I don't look at each purchase order and see, oh, that's coming from that fund or that fund or that fund. I didn't submit the purchase order. The purchase order would have come from the street department. So when I look at the street department purchase orders, I don't look to see what every single fund is coming from. That's just not, and I think the finance director could speak to that process of how we look at purchase orders and how we approve those. I am not the only signer. I am not the final signer. I'm just simply stating the process, sir.
I'm going to defer to Finance Director Plesky, and then Mr. Oswald, you will have your time.
Through you, Mr. President. So that particular purchase order came from the street department, and it goes through the normal process of being approved by the Safety Service Director's office, gets approved by my office, and then printed out. That money came from the Street Construction Maintenance and Repair Fund, which is funded with gasoline and tax received from the state and license plate fees. So there was money in the account, and I believe the purchase order was for $25,000.
Mr. Oswald.
Through you, Mr. President, I have to agree with Mrs. Mitchell because every time I've had to get a sign, it's gone through engineering. I first talked to engineering, then I've gone and talked to Ms. Rothgary, and I've tried to get a bus sign. So it didn't happen to go to anybody else or to the mayor. I went to the engineering. This is where it starts. And then I go and I say, can we put this sign up? And they yell, okay, we can or we can't. And then how much does that sign cost? Then they say, we can't afford it or we can afford it. I've been trying to get some deer signs with some lit up things. $2,500 a sign. I'm like, I'd love to do it, but I don't want to spend the city's money for a deer sign that's going to cost $2,500. But I thought that was the channel I was supposed to be going.
Well, I would suggest that on those things, sir, through the chair, that you would contact the Safety Service Director. If you're having difficulty going to the department, I would say it would be a much better route to go through the Safety Service Director than to go directly to different departments for different pieces.
Well, it seems like that process didn't happen in this instant. It was an administrative decision that was made out of one ward, and it was granted. And based on the conversations that have been held here by the council people, that they've tried to do the right thing and go through the process of getting signs. In this case, it wasn't. It was just go ahead. How many do you want? 20 or 25? Let's just put them up.
Well, I think that I wouldn't characterize it as that. I think whoever was in that conversation, and I was not in the room in that conversation, but I wouldn't just characterize that's what the conversation was. So I wasn't there, so I can't say that, hey, you want 25? You get 25. I don't think that it was as simple as that.
The proof is there that there's a number of signs that are put up in the ward. We feel there should be a process if you're going to expend that kind of money to have it referred instead of saying, okay, let's just go ahead and administratively check the box and go ahead and order the signs out of the department and without, was the engineering consulted?
I don't know what all the consulting pieces were. It was posed to me because of my signing of the purchase order. So outside of that, again, this is how that transpired.
Mr. Lippian.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. President, just to dispel all confusion, the ward that they're referring to is Ward 1, and the signs that they're referring to are solar-powered LED stop signs. Now, there's been a lot of back and forth about where these conversations happened. These conversations happened in the light of day. I went to the podium that Mr. Williams is standing at right there, and I gave a speech. The minutes will show sometime around November, December, and in that speech, I asked for several things that I had determined were priorities for my ward from conversations with residents through a First Ward Good Neighbors initiative, where we reach out to residents and try to find out what their priorities are, what they want to see. And in the speech, I just reviewed it actually before coming in here. I asked for a lot of things that I didn't get. Well, I guess we asked for a lot of things that we didn't get because it was our ward bringing these things to the mayor for consideration in response to his invitation for council members to, if they had things they wanted to see funded, to come forward and make those declarations before council. So that's what I did. And only one of the things on the list of about 11 probably items that our ward requested was granted, and we did ask exactly for 20 LED stop signs, so we did have a number. And I do have locations for where these stop signs are. There's one at the corner of Lexington and Taylor, 2 at Logan and Clark, 2 at Eastern Heights and Logan, 4 at Cornell and Garford, 2 at Stanford and Fairlawn, 2 Delaware and Warren, 4 Park and Eastern Heights, 2 Princeton and Park, and 1 Denison and East River, totaling 20. Now, in the selection of the sites for these signs, we spoke to residents. We went out and tried to make sure that the signs got spread out, because if there's too many LED signs too close to each other, the propinquity of the LED signs being too close will they'll just be treated as normal stop signs. They'll cease to be unique. If I could tell you how many conversations I've had with residents that just had tears in their eyes and said, "Thank you, I'm so glad this LED stop sign is up. I'm so thankful that this is here. I've noticed people stop at it more." Traffic statistics show it increases stop ratio and it reduces right angle crashes, as we've talked about before. So I completely understand that other wards would want to receive some things for their wards, and I think that that's laudable. I think that that's appreciable because that's always been on the table. Even in my speech, I said I looked to any of my ward council people for their thoughts and their input, and I'd be happy to receive it. I didn't receive any outreach. So this was all done in the light of day in council chambers. So
Well, I'll let you finish it.
That's what I wanted to say. And the only other thing I wanted to say is that, like Finance Director Pileski said, I don't believe it was paid for through ARPA funds, but also when I gave my proposal before this body and all in the chamber and online, you can find it, I also said whether through ARPA or through other means. So it looks like the mayor's office determined there were other means, and I know that Ms. Mitchell would do the same thing for her ward. Our job as ward council people is to receive what we can for our wards because our residents are asking for it, and it was asked for in the light of day. And my residents are very, very thankful, and it's made the ward a lot safer, especially with the K-8 school in the area. A lot of people feel very, very much more safe in the propinquity of those stop signs.
Yeah. So, Mr. Lippian, before I'm going to speak, and I'll give it to Mr. Tolet, it's the process. Even though you were here and you expelled what you would like to see in your ward, the process, it should go to engineering. It should not just stop at administration and say, okay, you're going to get your 20 signs. There's a process, and it didn't go through the process of engineering for review, consultation. It was just granted. So I'll give you a minute, Mr. Tolet.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, there's 7 wards in Elyria. If each ward got the same as Ward 7, that's $175,000, which far exceeds the mayor's authority to do this, which is why council's in place to do this on a ward level, which is why it's brought through council in the first place. So the mayor can spend up to $50,000 without bringing it through council, and to only choose one ward to have this done and cut out the other council members because of the cap on the financial spending. And I would ask Mr. Pileski to correct me if I'm wrong on that $50,000 cap. If we all got the same thing as Ward 1, it would have to run through council. But because it wasn't done in front of council with engineering's involvement, it got done without our knowledge. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And through the chair, please, if I could. I think I'm not saying that your math is wrong, but you're assuming to state the intention of a reason why someone did something. And you can't state the reason why. You can't say that the mayor did this to avoid that. You can make your statement about the math, but you cannot assume to know what the reason was why anyone did it. Now, you can ask him, but to make a statement of his intention, his motivation, or the reason why he did a certain thing, that's just liberty that you really can't take with any accuracy.
Through you, Mr. Chair, this is 2 meetings in a row that I've asked about to get definitive answer on, and we still don't have one, except what's been brought out tonight. Thank you.
Mr. Oswald, and then Mr. Mitchell, and then Mr. Lippian. I think you had your hand up. Mr. Oswald.
Through you, Mr. President. That's nice that your constituent says, we need one on Stanford, we need one on here. But when I went to try to find my information, I went to Ms. Rothgary, who has the numbers on how many cars are speeding in certain areas, how many deer crossed the road or got killed in certain areas. And I went to the police department and talked to Chief Pelko about a few things. And after I started seeing, in 5 or 7 years, there was 3 deer accidents that were reported. Okay, well, maybe I don't need 3 signs at $2,500. I think this is what we should be doing as far as due diligence. I mean, everybody wants as many signs as we can get, but here again, we're spending the city's money. You know, we can't be foolish about how we spend it. And like I said, when I found out how my signs were going to cost so much, I'm like, I can't do that because I wouldn't spend the money. I'm not going to spend the city's money. We'll figure out something else. That's what has to happen. I mean, you got to get input from your residents. I agree. But when I seen a sign, and I don't know what street it is, Stanford or Denison, and it dives right into East River, I'm thinking, why did that one get put there? Then put one on Harvard, one on Denison, one on Stanford, all of them. You know, do you have that many cars going down that street? Did anybody do a car check? You know, these are the things that you need to do if you're going to get a sign. I want to see, you know, some answers on why those signs were placed in the positions, not just to say, I live there, I'd sure like a stop sign. Now, I drive down Garford, and I almost blow through a stop sign that's new. There should be one blinking there because I've lived in the city of Elyria, and that one hasn't been there. But some of these others, we have to remember how we're spending the city's money. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Oswald. Ms. Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I'm going to say this and then I'll let it go. The reason I am so upset is because there is a process, and I have always followed the process. And to hear that one ward, Ward 1, got 20 signs, 20, 25, whatever, and I can't even get 3? Well, yeah, I'm pissed. I am pissed because my residents are just as important to me as yours are to you in Ward 1. And I feel like every ward council person up here should have had the same opportunity. We follow the process. There is a process in place for a reason, because the process works. And for one ward to get 20 signs is unheard of. I would never even ask for that many to begin with, because that's not fair to the rest of my colleagues. So yes, I am angry about that. When I have residents calling me, asking me, can they get a sign? And I said, oh, engineering, we don't have any, we don't have any. And then I find out one ward gets 20, and I've been telling my residents we don't have any? What the heck is that about? Thank you.
Mr. Lippian.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. President. Well, it's actually not unheard of. You heard it when I asked for it in a speech in council chambers, and nobody had anything to complain about then. Nobody had anything to say that was heretofore about the request. Nobody had any concerns. I even asked my council colleagues to reach out to me, and I heard nothing. So what I wanted to see, you always want to give somebody an opportunity to demonstrate that they're a good person. And I've heard a lot of people say, the mayor doesn't work with city council. I've heard this. We've all heard this. It's not uncommonly heard. I wanted to take it to a test. And he said, if any council members want to ask for what their input should be, for where funds should come from, please come up to the podium. I had the wherewithal to go up to the podium and ask. I wasn't the only one. Councilman Corbin also asked, and not Donna Mitchell, pardon me, ma'am, pardon me, Councilwoman Mitchell, Councilwoman Diane Simmons also requested something, and it was all considered and it was all looked into. And I don't know, because the mayor's not here, what he did or didn't grant or is or isn't looking at. I think he's an important person to have in this conversation. But ultimately, what I want to say is that I wanted to give him an opportunity to see how we could work together, because that was the request. And what I discovered is that he kept his word, and the first ward received LED stop signs that ultimately make our ward, which has a huge chunk of the K through 8th grade kids in that ward, safer. And that's the ultimate upshot, is it made our ward safer. And I know that if other council people come to the microphone and try to work with the mayor in a transparent light the way I did, they may find comparable results, and I hope that they do. I don't want it to be lopsided. I think instead of the first ward's responses getting lopsided, what was really lopsided was the dearth of other council people going to the microphone and giving him a chance to demonstrate whether he could produce for their ward. And I think that remains to be seen. I'm sure that might still be on the table, but at any rate, without him here, I don't see the purpose in continuing this conversation much further, because one of the main players in it isn't present.
Excuse me,
At any rate.
please, through the chair. So I understand the lack of equity when there's such disparity. So what I would encourage is let's figure out how we can expand this and get more signs in the wards, because we want everyone to be safe. And I think the efficiency, the effectiveness of these signs is demonstrated that they do help in terms of monitoring traffic. So we will figure out a process that allows us to get more signs distributed throughout the city, and that's a commitment. Director Lundy and I and the mayor will make sure that we reach out to you and figure out how do we get to that next step. So I think there's disappointment, there's frustration, and that's there. So what do we do next? We try to get more signs placed in wards and work with council folks to get to that point. In engineering and anybody else included who needs to be. So let's just move forward in that regard.
I'm glad that you just mentioned that, because that is the process. The engineer should be consulted when it goes through the process, and it should come before this council, not administratively decided.
Well, again, and I think I want to make sure that it's clear, the rules are the rules, and everyone tries to stay within the boundaries of the rules in terms of expenditure amounts in that process. So I do agree that we need to make sure that we get better distribution, and that's fair. That is absolutely fair. And the criticism around that, I understand.
Very good. Thank you. We'll move on. What's this regard? Is there any more, are you adding more value to it or what? Go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. President. Yep, there's some more value because Councilman Oswald mentioned that there was a stop sign. He couldn't understand why it was at the corner of Denison and East River. And that's a specific resident on that corner that for the last 2 years that I've known them, they've said that they've watched multiple people almost get hit by cars going through the stop sign there because there's a bush and you can barely see to the right of the bush. And the stop sign also just gets blown. So this is people on the ground that see this every day, and those are the people that helped result and manifest in some of these locations. That's all I wanted to add.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on, Ms. McKillips, Larry City Engineer, how apropos.
Good evening. I just wanted to really briefly update you on just a few projects. Our phase 1 of our street resurfacing project is going out to bid this week. So in a few weeks, we'll have a contractor on board, and once we get that completed, then we'll be able to get a schedule to you as far as when we can see work actually being performed out in the field. Today, our West Ave water main project started. I mean, the first task that the contractor's working on this week is performing some sewer repairs on West Ave. Next week, they'll be starting the actual water main project. We had put this project off until schools was out of session, so with that being the case right now, we're moving forward with that work, and we are going to be bidding out the resurfacing of West Ave, that same section between 3rd Street and 8th Place this week. So we'll be looking at getting that section of the road resurfaced after the water main improvement project. Want to quickly mention that pertaining to our water and sewer rate study, Black & Veatch continues to work on our rate model update. But we are now working on the customer assistance program. Information from the water department, wastewater, public utilities, and finance has been provided to Black & Veatch for the update of the model, and hopefully within the next few months we'll have a draft or preliminary information regarding this customer assistance program that we're looking to possibly implement. I briefly want to mention West Park improvements. I mean, the trail's getting almost done, parking lots, okay, we have stripes on the pavement. I do want to mention one thing, and this is more for the residents that live out there that drive on the trail. The trail is not meant for vehicles or for driving throughout the park to get to your shady spot so you can sit down and have lunch. The trail is for bicycles, walkers, joggers, strollers, you know, rollerblades, that type of thing. So once we get all the signage in place and stuff, hopefully that will curb the propensity for vehicles to end up on the trail, but I just wanted to mention that. And then lastly, I wanted to mention that East Side Relief Sewer, you know, the issue that we were having with the delay at the big chamber in front of Smitty's and the gas station has been resolved, and we are looking to start that work next Tuesday, a week from tomorrow. So at that point, you'll be looking at some big pieces of equipment on East Bridge Street. The actual traffic configuration shouldn't change much, but just be careful, be cautious, and just pay attention. That's all I have.
Ms. McKillips, if you could, you know, maybe for the July meeting, give us an update on where we at with Chestnut Commons, with the gas station developing over and through there, and the traffic. I would think that that is fast approaching completion. And, you know, part of our agreement with the developer was to where our status is with the Department of Transportation, where are we at with that, the study about, you know, this is going to be coming into full swing. We talked about development of the additional access to the south. Where are things at with that so that we can kind of keep moving forward with, you know, the sewer that's supposed to be potentially going over through that way for sanitation? Just an update on that would be greatly appreciated so we can kind of get a plan in place and where things are at with that.
Sure, absolutely.
Ms. Mitchell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. The new trails at West Park are awesome, and it's going to be just fantastic when they're finally open. We are planning on having a grand opening, working with the Parks Director on working out the details of that to have a grand opening, a ribbon cutting ceremony, so forth and so on. So we'll keep you posted on that. Thank you.
Mr. Oswald?
Through you, Mr. President, Ms. McKillips. So when they finish the curves and things on Cleveland Street, are they going to wait until everything's done all the way to East Broad, or are they going to blacktop a certain portion, like maybe to Gulf Road and stop? And how's that finished blacktop going to end up?
Well, we have to remember we are looking at doing traffic signal improvements on Cleveland Street. The lead time for poles are around 9 months, could give or take 2 or 3 months. One thing that we'll be looking at is getting the new curbs in, getting the infrastructure in, and getting the base and the intermediate pavement in place. Whether or not we'll actually put the very top layer of asphalt in, we'll have to see about that, only because the traffic signals need modifications in order to accommodate 3 lanes as opposed to 4 lanes, with that middle turn lane, double left turn lane. We want to make sure that we don't have to go through and grind off old pavement markings when the new traffic signals. So we'll have to look at exactly see how that's going to work out.
Okay, thank you.
There was one other thing I wanted to ask you, Ms. McKellips, and I'll keep it brief. In regards to Cleveland Street, I was hoping that with all the new curbing and the aprons, that we would have new curbs and aprons and sidewalks. And it seems in certain areas, we're just matching some of the older sidewalk that's there. I know that there's a funding mechanism that entails what we're trying to do with that. Is that the end result of what's being poured now on sidewalks, more in particular, the final product?
Yes, if the existing sidewalk is in good shape, meets the slope, can be left, and we can install the new sidewalk up to it, that's how it's going to take place in order to, I don't want to say save money, but help with our budget.
I understand. I was just hoping that this is a once in a lifetime money that we would be having to kind of make all these repaired. I would have liked to have seen a full clean slate of sidewalk to sidewalk aprons, drive aprons, curbing. So thank you. Okay. Any other questions for Ms. McKellips? If not, appreciate it. Public Works Supervisor, Ms. Connor. Any questions for Ms. Connor? Mr. Lippian?
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you, given that we've been in the meeting for about an hour and 45 minutes, what would Council President's appetite be for a quick recess for a 5-minute bio break for everybody?
Well, let me finish with the remaining people here, and then we'll take it under advisement. Ms. Scott? Mr. Farkas, Chief Building Official.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. President. Last time we were here, the council requested an update in regards to the hotels. I'll start with the furthest south, which is Journey Inn. The ownership has gone silent. We have heard nothing from them. We think there's an ownership concern, potential guardianship. We are pursuing charges through the court system and moving forward with getting that repaired. Moving northern, we hit Motel 9. That ownership has actually responded positively. We have issued some permits. They're working towards getting that place cleaned up. And lastly is Days Inn. That ownership has also responded in positive light, has gone in with some contractors to assess the building. I think out of all 3 of the hotels, that is the largest animal to tackle. There's a lot of things wrong with that particular hotel, but it is moving in a positive direction. Lastly, I wanted to bring to council's attention that I've asked staff to produce some houses in some areas that are incredibly blighted and to pick the worst of the worst based on what budget we have remaining. And I've come up with at least 12 sites, I do have more, that we're going to pursue that have either gone in the court case process, has died on the vine, and we're coming to take our own action.
Very good. Any questions for Mr. Farkas? Mr. Davis, Ms. Davis, then Ms.
Through you, Chair. The hotel situation, so is the Hotel 9, is that one, I got all of them in my area. Are we specifically looking at the one on the corner of Warden and 57?
Motel 9.
Hotel 9. Because because I see so much activity going on over there, you would think we haven't been by there. And I see just mattresses and just thrown out in the parking lot. So, and you call, thank you for doing what you do.
Thank you, Mr. President, through you, Mr. Davis. Well, what we have here with this is a multi-pronged approach. We've condemned the upper level. It was unfit for human occupancy due to the conditions of the stairs. The lower level was also called into question. The fire department actually pursued that one. That was an effort between health department and building department, so all three of us went in. And I think that one, they're also cleaning house, top to bottom.
Mr. Lippian?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. President. Mr. Farkas, has there been any update on the status with that connector street that goes off of East Broad that feeds into a parking lot and has some big crater-like potholes in it?
Mr. President, through you, Mr. Lippian, yes. We just found out a few days ago of the ownership. It was semi-convoluted, but we had to do a lot of digging. In my 25 years, this one was well insulated. I've never seen one, but we did check the law department. We have narrowed it down to the ownership, and we are marching forward with getting those repairs, getting the orders out.
Okay, so any other questions for Mr. Farkas? At the bequest of Mr. Lippian, I guess we will take a 5-minute recess.
That's my motion. Mm-hmm.
We don't need a motion, I guess, at this time. Well, Law Director Deary, I guess, just for proper protocol, I'm not sure if it's just a...
Does anyone have any objection?
None. Okay, we'll take a quick 5-minute recess. Can everyone please turn their mics off?
Mic off.
Okay, we're going to continue on with, we have everybody here. President's referrals and remonstrances. Item number 1, community development. Item number 2, community development. Item number 3, finance. Item number 4, finance. Item number 5, finance. Item number 6, finance. Item number 7, utilities. Item number 8, utilities. Item 9, utilities. Item 10, utilities. Item 11, utilities. Item 12, utilities. Item 13, utilities. Item 14, utilities. Item 15, utilities. Item 16, received and placed on in the clerk's office. Petitions and remonstrances from the lobby.
There are none.
Petitions and remonstrances from council members.
There are none.
Reports of standing and special committees.
There are none.
Or resolutions first reading.
Sponsored by Finance. A resolution approving the collection of emergency temporary repair costs for 225 Harwood Street, Elyria, Ohio, for 4035, and directing the clerk of council to certify said cost to Lorraine County Auditor.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this resolution be passed in first reading.
Second.
Second by Mr. Snyder. Is there any further discussion? On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Resolution 2023-15. Sponsored by Finance. A resolution approving the collection of emergency temporary repair costs for 888 Lorraine Boulevard, Elyria, Ohio, for 4035, and directing the clerk of council to certify said cost to Lorraine County Auditor.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this resolution be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Resolution 2023-16. Sponsored by Finance. A resolution approving the collection of emergency temporary repair costs for 1825 Lorraine Boulevard, Elyria, Ohio, for 4035, and directing the clerk of council to certify said costs to Lorraine County Auditor.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this resolution be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor signify, on the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Resolution 2023-17. Sponsored by Finance. A resolution approving the collection of emergency temporary repair costs for 2040 Midway Mall, Elyria, Ohio, for 4035, and directing the clerk of council to certify said cost to Lorraine County Auditor.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this resolution be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Resolution 2023-18. Sponsored by Finance. A resolution approving the collection of emergency temporary repair costs for 144 Irondale Street, Elyria, Ohio, for 4035, and directing the clerk of council to certify said cost to Lorraine County Auditor.
Mr. Tolet.
President, I ask that this resolution be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
All, in the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Resolution 2023-19. That's all resolutions first reading.
Resolutions second reading.
There are none.
Resolutions third reading.
There are none.
Ordinances first reading.
Sponsored by Community Development. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a professional services agreement with the Resource Consultants for the Community Development Department and declare an emergency.
Mr. Callahan?
Mr. President, I move that this ordinance be passed on its first reading under suspension of rules and declare an emergency.
Second.
Second by Ms. Mitchell. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Nay. We had a nay?
With two nays.
Two nays? Two nays? Andrew?
So this is, I guess this would be a first, you don't, on the, so that's the emergency.
Okay.
So you're gonna have to go for a second reading or roll call.
Oh, Brenda.
Eight two.
Take a vote on.
Who was the second A? Andrew?
Mr. Corbin.
Brenda? Oh, Mickey. I'm sorry.
Mr. Corbin.
Mr.
Sorry,
Corbin,
no,
okay.
you could still take a vote on the passage. We have a vote for.
So it just would be on
suspension,
emergency?
Correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, okay, let's go through point of order.
Okay.
So with that, on the
Okay.
suspension, all those in favor signify
Okay.
by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. That's on the suspension. Okay, on the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Two nays, Mr. Lippian and Mr. Corbin. On the
sorry.
passage,
Everybody voted for it on the suspension. We voted against that.
I'm sorry, there's just a little bit. So just for the record, everyone, there was a unanimous for the suspension, is that correct?
right.
Okay.
So on the emergency, we have two nays, Mr. Lippian and Mr. Corbin. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay.
Nay.
One nay, Mr. Corbin.
Ordinance 2023-83.
What was it, Mr. Clerk? 83?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
83. Sponsored by Community Development and Finance. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to donate real property located on North Street to the Elyria Community Improvement Corporation.
Mr. Callahan?
Mr. President, I move that this ordinance be passed on its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second by Ms. Mitchell. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2023-84. Sponsored by Community Development and Finance. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to donate real property located on Shear Street to the Elyria Community Improvement Corporation.
Mr. Callahan?
Mr. President, I move that this ordinance be passed on its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second. Second by Mr. Schneider. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2023-85. Sponsored by Community Development and Finance. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement to lease real property located at 799 North Abbey Road, owned by the city of Elyria, and declare an emergency.
Mr. Callahan?
Mr. President, I move that this ordinance be passed on its first reading under suspension of rules and declare an emergency.
Second. Second by Ms. Mitchell. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2023-86. Sponsored by Community Development and Finance. An ordinance authorizing an extension of the Elyria Skills City Promise Program agreement with Lorain County Community College.
Mr. Callahan?
Mr. President, I move this ordinance be passed on its first reading under suspension of rules.
Second.
Second by Mr. Schneider. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying, nope, there's no emergency. My point of order on that.
We good?
There's no emergency on that?
Can we do passage?
Okay. Just on the passage.
Ordinance 2023-87. Sponsored by Community Development and Finance. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to submit an application to the State of Ohio Development Services Agency and accept, if offered, the 2023 Community Housing Impact and Preservation CHIP funds and declare emergency.
Mr. Callahan.
Mr. President, I move that this ordinance be passed on its first reading, under suspension of rules, and declare an emergency.
Second.
Second by Mr. Schneider. Questions have been called. On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the emergency, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2023-88. Sponsored by Finance. An ordinance authorizing the submission through the Law Director's Office of applications to the Office of the Attorney General, State of Ohio, and to accept, if offered, the 2023-2024 Victims of Crime Act VOCA grant and the 2023 to 2024 State Victims Assistance Act SVAA grant for the Victims Assistance Program.
Mr. Tolet.
Mr. President, I ask that this ordinance be passed in its first reading under suspension of rules and declared an emergency.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Is there any further
Through
discussion?
you, I'm sorry, there is no emergency on
No
this.
emergency on this?
Thank you.
Okay. Does the motion concur?
The motion concurs.
Does the second? On the suspension, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. On the passage, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Ordinance 2023-89. That's all ordinances first reading.
Ordinance is second reading.
There are none.
Ordinance is third reading.
There are none.
Committee calls.
Community Development, request the Law Director, Safety Service Director, Building Inspector, and Engineer on Monday, 6/26, beginning at 6 p.m. Items referred. Joint CD Finance, request the Mayor, Law Director, Finance Director, Safety Service Director, and Engineer on Monday, 6/26, immediately following the Community Development meeting. Finance, request the Mayor, Law Director, Finance Director, Safety Service Director, and Engineer on Monday, 6/26, immediately following the joint meeting. Utility Safety Environment, request the Law Director, Safety Service Director, and Engineer on Wednesday, 6/7, beginning at 6 p.m. All items referred. And Council Strategic Planning, request the Mayor, Safety Service Director, Finance Director, and Law Director on Monday, 7/10, beginning at 7 p.m., following the meeting.
Very good. Thank you. Miscellaneous and unfinished business?
Read it. I just read it.
Hearing none. Ms. Mitchell? We're going to adjourn it, then we'll go into strategic planning.
Seeing none, Mr. President, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Moved by Ms. Mitchell, second by Mr. Lippian. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. We're going to move right into strategic planning. Can I get a call to order, Mr. Lacko?
Give us 1 second to set up.
Okay.
My meeting. Just leave it.
Hear me? 2 includes those changes towards 1 and 3, and it has the same changes that A1 has for 2, 5, and 6.
Show A2 then?
A2?
Yeah. So it's the same in 5 and 6, or sorry, 2 and 5 would be the same. The adjustment would be in 1 and 3.
Right. So let me pull that up.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So A2 takes A1 and then adds the 1 and 3 piece as well. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Anybody have any? Oh, all right.
So this is the zoomed out version of A2. So you'll see where it's the same as the A1, it just incorporates the changes to 1 and 3 as well.
What is, Mr. Schneider has made he likes A2 as well, and I think that was kind of what his bringing up and over and through there. So based on this, 2 and 6 would change slightly, and then 1 and 3 would change slightly.
Through you, Mr. Chair, and obviously 5 will have that change as well.
In a portion of 5, right, yes, would change, obviously, because you're carving out for 6. So what is that, consensus on A2? It looks good for everybody? A2. All right. Mr. Lippian, did you have a comment? You had your hand up.
Yeah, Mr. President, I just wanted to say, between wards 1 and 3, Mr. Corbin and I are in agreement that the transfer of the sections of our wards is acceptable to both of us.
Okay. So, Mr. Schneider, if you want to make a motion, or someone make a motion to go ahead, I guess, do we need to proceed with A2 or just make that recommendation?
What's going to happen is we'll do a committee report, since this is strategic planning.
Okay.
All right, so, if you'd like, I can propose a committee report. We need a blank one. So, and we'll put one together, and you all can tell me if that's, acceptable or not.
I don't know if Mr. Johnson has kind of weighed in, or he's still, are you?
I believe he can speak now. So, Mr. Johnson, we just did a quick review of the 4 different maps again, and they're looking at making a decision as to how they would like to proceed. Do you have any other comments, or?
No, it sounds good. I could actually see you going through the map, so I knew you'd walk through them. So thank you for doing that, and I'm happy to answer any questions that I can help with.
It would appear right now, Mr. Johnson, that we're moving forward with draft A2. And so what we're trying to do right now is kind of create a committee report, and I guess Ms. Scott will have some more conversations with you to kind of finalize things before we come to a full council to finalize for the ordinance and redistricting.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Appreciate your efforts on it. I know there's still a little bit more work to do, but it'll all change in 10 years.
Yeah.
Mr. Lippian?
Through you, Mr. President, I just wanted to say I wish that other committees and councils had reached a consensus on redistricting as effectively as we have tonight.
Very good.
Okay.
All right, we're ready?
Okay.
President? Yes, Mr. Clerk, go ahead and read the committee
We've
report.
considered the matter of ward redistricting as a result of the 2020 census. Legislation will be drawn authorizing the Timmons Group recommendation draft A2 and finalization of ward map. Yes, legislation to be sponsored by the strategic planning.
Ms. Mitchell?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I will second.
Second by Mr. Sarah. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Everybody needs to sign this before they go.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Have a good evening.
Take care.
You too.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
Okay, you're the
All
only
right.
person here.
See what happens, when there's no lines. See, this is where the lines are important. All right. And, no, motion to adjourn?
Can I do?
If there's no further.
Mr. President, seeing that there's no other business to come before this council, I'll make a motion for adjournment.
Second. Second by Mr. Sears. Any further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Please make sure you sign the committee report. It's at my possession now.